Tonight, breaking news on a tragic freak accident on our roads. The election campaign overrun by vote rorting and political donation scandals. Miracle escapes as a car slams into a shop in Melbourne's east. Hundreds of passengers left in cabins for days in a new COVID cruise ship nightmare, then allowed to disembark in Melbourne. The angry fallout as Deliveroo pulls out of Australia without warning. And later, strategies and tips for families facing the teenage drinking dilemma.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. A freak accident has claimed the life of a woman in the Macedon Ranges. She was killed when a tree came down on a car at Wood End. Rochelle Brown is there this evening, and Rochelle, the car was travelling on a country road.
Mitch, the car was travelling on the road, on top of the car while it was moving, and it crushed the passenger inside. It all unfolded just before 2:30 this afternoon. Paramedics assessed 2 people, but sadly the woman died at the scene. South Rock Road is closed in both directions and traffic is being diverted. Emergency services worked for several hours to lift the trunk off the road and are still there this evening. Investigations are ongoing. The male driver was taken to the Royal Melbourne Hospital. He's in a stable condition tonight with non-life-threatening injuries. Mitch?
Rochelle Brown at Wood End, thank you. The election campaign has been overrun by political scandals just 9 days out from polling day. Labor is embroiled in accusations over a seats for sale rort, and Liberal leader Matthew Guy has been referred to the anti-corruption watchdog over political donations.
Accusations of vote rorting and dodgy party payments. The state election campaign is sinking deeper into scandal.
Why hasn't the government actually taken any action on this?
Well, we are very much focused on delivering on the commitments that we made.
Were you lying yesterday when you said you'd been fully cooperative?
Absolutely not.
Just 9 days until the election, the Liberal leader has been referred to IBAC.
I provided all the information I had weeks and weeks and weeks ago.
In August, Mitch Catlin was forced to resign as Matthew Guy's Chief of Staff after revelations he'd asked a wealthy donor to deposit $100,000 into his personal account. The donation agreement allegedly sent to Mr Guy's Hotmail account for approval.
Anything I've been asked for that I've had in my possession I've provided. I've done nothing wrong.
Today, the VEC handed the matter over to the anti-corruption watchdog, saying despite public statements to the contrary, the VEC has not received full cooperation from those connected to its investigation. The Labor leader was also under pressure over the upper house. Its voting system has been scrutinised for years as it allows the use of group voting tickets, which lets candidates do deals and be elected with less than 1% of votes.
We've got to give the government, which will be the Andrews government, we've got to give them a crossbench they can work with.
2 members of the Angry Victorians Party filmed this meeting with Glenn Drury.
A minor party has had the balance of power in this country at a state or federal level for nearly 25 years. And my fingerprints have been on almost all of them.
Known as the preference whisperer, Mr Drury helps minor parties conduct preference deals for a fee. Mr Andrews has been repeatedly asked to reform the system, given Victoria is the only state using it.
It certainly has not been at the top of the list.
This is a manipulation of a system, and it is a manipulation for financial gain.
And Chanel Vella joins us now. Chanel, an extraordinary number of Victorians are voting early.
Well, over 400,000 Victorians have already cast their vote. That number is significantly up from 2018. Among the reasons, people are trying to dodge big crowds. They're also trying to avoid COVID on election day, Mitch.
Chanel Vella at State Parliament, thank you. A baby, customers and workers have miraculously survived a close call as a car ploughed into a shop in Melbourne's east, leaving 2 women trapped in debris and 1 later in hospital. What makes it worse, it's happened before, and pleas for action have gone unanswered.
Lives upended and a fruit stall bulldozed. A mother and her baby only narrowly avoided the impact. Shoppers and store owner Gina Menelau were trapped in the wreckage.
Literally felt like she was coming at 100 kilometres an hour with such force. It was just horrific, traumatising, terrible. It just literally happened out of the blue.
An 86-year-old woman had been attempting to park at the Kerrymuir shopping strip, but instead surged over the curb and footpath into Nick's fruit shop. A shopper who'd been standing at the counter suffered a broken leg after being shunted in the massive crash.
But it was my lucky day. It could have been much worse.
The Kerrymuir shopping strip is notorious for cars being driven into shops. In August 2020, this vehicle smashed into a cafe. The year before that, a woman was pinned to the wall outside the same fruit shop by a driver who'd mounted the curb. 5 months ago, Whitehorse Council attempted to boost safety here by installing wheel stops, but locals and traders are adamant that bollards are needed for their protection.
Council say we can put in these rubber strips things. It's just like a ramp. It's a launching pad for someone to hit it.
It's a busy little strip. What are they waiting for? For someone to get killed?
The Whitehorse Council didn't respond to inquiries. Gina Menelau was trapped for several minutes and suffered minor leg and head injuries. Her customer is recovering in hospital. The driver escaped injury. Police are treating this as an accident. Cameron Bowe, 7 News.
200 COVID-positive patients have been allowed to come ashore in Melbourne after they were caught up in a cruise ship nightmare. Some had been stuck in tiny cabins with limited supplies for up to 8 days before they were allowed to disembark.
Passengers disembarked from the Grand Princess, having had vastly different cruising experiences.
It was lovely. It was good.
Great. Hell and back.
Of the 2,100 people who'd just finished a round trip to New Zealand, 200 were COVID positive this morning, including Louise Vogt.
We've been treated like lepers on the boat, locked in our rooms, in isolation. We've had cold meals delivered to us. I've had trouble getting medication.
Both me and my wife were told we weren't allowed out of the room, and she's negative.
The 200 doesn't include people who caught it earlier on the 12-day journey and have since tested negative, like Marion's dad.
I'm picking my dad up, who's 91. He's just getting over COVID, but he's very weak. He's been in his cabin for 6 days.
COVID-positive passengers who are disembarking today have been encouraged by Princess Cruises to go home and continue isolating, but there's no longer a formal requirement for them to do so. In the new era of living freely with COVID, positive cases were expected, and passengers who didn't have to isolate said it was almost business as usual.
There was no panic. I mean, it was still, the cruise was going on and nothing has changed.
Similar sentiment from the new group boarding today as the ship sets sail for Queensland.
We know that there's COVID and we know that there's probably a strong possibility of us getting it, but we've had it, so hopefully everything will be okay.
That over there is not a dreamboat cruise, it's a nightmare.
And Christy Cooper joins us now from Port Melbourne. Christy, the ship is about to depart for its next trip.
It is, Mitch. After a slight delay, it is expected to set sail any minute, and there is no sign that the cruising industry is planning to uproot its scheduling again as a result of this fourth COVID wave. In fact, between now and Christmas, 22 cruise ships are due here at Station Pier, with tens of thousands of holiday makers eager to make up for lost time. Mitch.
Christy Cooper at Port Melbourne, thank you. A Sri Lankan cricketer has been granted bail more than a week after he was arrested over the rape of a woman at her Sydney home. Danushka Ginatalaka is facing strict bail conditions. He needs to report to police daily, has a curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. and has to surrender his passport. The 31-year-old has been banned from using Tinder or any other dating app. The case is back in court in January. The Transport Workers Union has savaged Deliveroo over its shock decision to abandon the Australian market. The food delivery giant claims it will compensate riders, but that depends on how much money is left.
Deliveroo orders cancelled for good. The food delivery company is riding off from Australia, chased down by competitors and chased hard by the union.
Oh, well, this is a company that's been exploiting workers since it entered the market. You know, in some respects, it's good riddance to them.
Deliveroo had up to 15,000 riders on its books. Some claim it paid better during busy periods.
Drivers are actually upset because, they earn good money.
Others say Deliveroo was a difficult customer.
From my perspective, they just care about the money and they didn't care about feedback from the companies that were basically working for them.
Deliveroo's decision to skip town here follows the company's exit from Germany, the Netherlands, Spain and Thailand.
The top one is Uber Eats and then Deliveroo, so I think it will impact to the other restaurants.
Administrators have been appointed to salvage what's left. Deliveroo has told 7 News it hopes to pay its riders at least 2 weeks, perhaps 4, if there's enough money left.
We might see Deliveroo branding for a while. Jules bought his thermal box off Facebook for $50. He never worked for Deliveroo. He says riders can make good money.
Last week I make 1,800.
But now the pool of employers has shrunk.
There are other companies, Uber Eats and DoorDash, that are working with the union and working with the new federal government to figure out how to make this type of work more sustainable.
Blake Johnson, 7 News.
A car has driven 30 metres along a footpath during a wild police chase on St Kilda Road this morning. Officers tried to stop the Commodore because it had cancelled registration plates. The driver took off, driving erratically before crashing into a bollard. 2 people ran from the scene. There's a sigh of relief among world leaders tonight, with growing evidence the deadly missile strike in Poland was a stray fired by Ukraine. It means a dangerous escalation between Russia and NATO members should be avoided.
In the farmlands that became a flashpoint, Polish investigators search for missile shrapnel in the hunt to discover who brought Europe to the brink.
We have avoided what could have been a catastrophic outcome.
As a war of words has broken out over who was responsible.
Our preliminary analysis suggests that the incident was likely caused by a Ukrainian air defense missile.
But Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky has surprised the West, refusing to accept blame. I have no doubt, he said, that it was not our missile. Polish authorities believe the shrapnel proves it was an S-300 Soviet-era rocket used by Ukraine. This is one successfully striking its target mid-air. But yesterday's missed and strayed into Polish territory.
Those innocent people would not have been killed if there had been no Russian war against Ukraine.
Russian President Vladimir Putin made a single public appearance online today, making no comment.
Russia is increasingly isolated. That is what the G20 showed.
A major boost for Ukraine today, though. A new international fund has been launched to try and rebuild the shattered country. And the first $500 million donation has come from here, Australia, and the billionaire investor, Andrew Twiggy Forrest. Australia's second richest met President Zelensky in June, then gifting him a stock whip. Now, cash.
And I'd have to say he was ecstatic.
Into a fund he's calling a green growth strategy.
Australia is leading the way here, helping Ukraine.
Chris, I believe once this happens, you'll have Ukraine as the highest growth economy in Europe.
So needed, 24 hours after Ukraine's worst missile strikes of the war. Chris Reason, 7 News.
A major search is underway for a third person feared missing in the New South Wales flood emergency. Bill Hogan is in Forbes this evening, and Bill, 2/3 of the town has been inundated.
Yeah, it is, Pete, and it's expected to stay that way for several days to come. The floodwaters here in Forbes peaked at 10.7 metres today, just shy of the record from 1952. Still tonight, hundreds of businesses and homes are buried beneath this brown, murky water, which is now very slowly starting to recede. The problem with that, though, is that the water is now heading west, putting country towns like Condobolin under threat. That town is bracing for impact, which is certainly going to be a stressful time for them, with plenty of evacuation orders in place for low-lying areas there. East in Ugala, the heartbreak continued with another missing person reported. We learned today that a police officer conducting a rescue spotted what was believed to be the body of a man in his 20s. An appeal has come out to the public to try and find any loved ones or any family members that perhaps are missing someone, but still that is yet to be identified. This all comes as well as an 85-year-old man who is still missing. His family are holding grave fears that he will be found alive. It's certainly been a long and heartbreaking day for these communities and for these rescue crews, grappling with the biggest rescue effort this state has ever seen. Pete?
Yes, indeed. Bill Hogan in Forbes. Thank you. There's more grim news for older Australians, with new research revealing a comfortable retirement is getting further and further out of reach. It shows how soaring inflation is hitting hard, leaving seniors struggling to make ends meet.
Rhonda Dahl says every trolley load of groceries she pushes to her car is more expensive than the last.
It's always going up.
A new report finding the cost of retirement has risen 6.6% this year, just below inflation. Soaring prices in the aisles combined with rising fuel and energy bills means the pensioner is watching her finances like a hawk.
Very cautious now of what I do get.
There's no doubt all retirees are doing it tough, but we're by no means the worst in the world.
To retire comfortably, a couple now needs almost $70,000 a year. Singles around $50,000, often through a combination of super and the age pension. That's assuming they don't have a mortgage to worry about.
Around 1 in 5 older Australians does not own their own home, and they don't all have superannuation,
leaving many living in pension poverty.
When we said prior to the election, life wouldn't be easy under Anthony Albanese, that is now being reflected in those figures.
Labor says the figures show just how important compulsory superannuation is, providing a safety net in retirement. And if it wasn't for the previous government, those nest eggs would be bigger.
It was meant to get to 12% years ago and didn't, because you had a coalition government that didn't care.
Seniors groups want the law changed to allow older Australians to work more without losing their pension payments, making life a little easier for those without super to draw on. Rob Scott, 7 News.
Novak Djokovic has been full of praise for the federal government for overturning his 3-year visa ban and granting him permission to play in January's Australian Open.
You know, last year obviously left a bitter taste in with me and my family and everybody, but I'm very happy and want to thank the Australian government for removing the ban and granting me the visa to enter Australia.
Djokovic says he now plans to enjoy a great Australian summer as he aims for a record 10th Oz Open singles title. Tim Watson's here with a preview of sport now, and Tim, Pat Cummins has made a dream start for the Australians.
Mitch, the new one-day skipper, is leading from the front against England, but his teammate copped a nasty blow from the visitors. All the action from Adelaide is ahead. Also here from Aussie golf star Cam Smith, back home with a treasured trophy. Aaron Moore's motivation for the Socceroos ahead of the World Cup amidst a war of words has erupted at the Hawks. More on that soon.
We'll see you a bit later. Thank you, Tim. 2 brave Victorians have gone public, standing shoulder to shoulder for a good cause. Next, what brought a former AFL star and a volcano disaster survivor together? Also coming up, a little cancer patient caught in the hospital crisis. King Charles sends a message and cash for Victoria's flood victims. Later, a special report, what's on the Christmas food hard-to-get list.
And warmth and sunshine arrive tomorrow, but it doesn't last long. I'll have the full outlook later in 7 News.
A 7-year-old cancer patient has been caught up in the state's health crisis. His family says he was turned away from a chemotherapy appointment at the Royal Children's Hospital on Monday because of a bed shortage.
When a 7-year-old boy can't get chemo treatment in Victoria, you know the health system's broken and you know it needs to be fixed.
He was eventually admitted last night. Freeway cameras have revealed how a Croydon dad was stalked in the final tragic minutes before he was gunned down as he drove to work. Paul Vergona was shot on Eastlink, but a man standing trial for his murder insists he didn't do it.
A suburban dad's work van stalked by a stolen Mercedes. These were the chilling final moments of Paul Vergona's life. The Croydon fruiterer had left home early to get to the Epping markets, but right behind him was this Mercedes. It followed Mr Vergona from his home onto the Eastlink, overtaking a truck to keep up. After 2 a.m, gunshots were fired, Mr Vergona dying in his van of multiple gunshot wounds. Police officers Tamara Brisbane and Nicholas Connellan were first on scene. Today, they told a court they found Mr Vergona's body in the driver's seat, with the engine still running. Aaron Ong and Josh Ryder have been charged with Mr Vergona's murder. A court hearing the Mercedes was later torched, with police pursuing a separate getaway car.
Can we get our wing up, please?
Ong has pleaded not guilty, claiming he wasn't in the Mercedes when the fatal shots were fired. But the prosecution insists he was either the driver or the gunman. 3 years on, it's still not known why Paul Vergona was killed. The jury's been told the dad had no criminal links. The 46-year-old's family has attended each day of the trial. Estelle Greeping, 7 News.
Australian families are hoping for justice as they gather in Amsterdam tonight to hear the verdict over the MH17 tragedy. The 4 men accused of shooting down the plane are in hiding.
I think most of the families have pretty realistic expectations, but it's important. I put a lot of weight on it because the truth is important.
All 298 people on board the Malaysia Airlines flight, including 38 Australians, were killed. 2 brave Victorians have joined forces for a good cause. New Zealand volcano survivor Stephanie Browett and AFL Premiership hero Tom Boyd opened up on their struggles to find help for others.
Together, they spoke of their mental health battles, but their path to pain so different. In the New Zealand volcano eruption, Steph Browett lost her father and sister. She suffered burns to 70% of her body, but also
severe trauma, nightmares, intense grief, and post-traumatic stress disorder.
Tom Boyd starred.
Tom Boyd goes long. It's a goal!
In the Bulldogs' first premiership in 62 years, but still...
The sleep issues in particular that I'd faced, the issues with anxiety and depression, and really trying to understand who I was as a person came to a head.
Both here to support Labor's election pledge to expand free local community mental health centres.
If you don't have that access or it's not nearby, it's hard to sort of find the motivation to seek that help.
The more barriers we could remove, both from a cost point of view but also from an accessibility point of view, I think is incredibly important.
And the Coalition campaign drilled down into the gap between Bush and the city, promising a new Department for Regional Victoria.
A department that focuses on fixing inequality, that brings country and regional Victoria up to standards they expect.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
King Charles has made a donation to Victoria's flood victims. While the amount won't be made public, it will be used by Give It for food, clothes and accommodation. The new monarch says he wants to recognise the extraordinary efforts of emergency services, Defence Force personnel and thousands of volunteers. There are still 65 flood warnings in place across the state. A night out at Crown has left a family devastated. Next, it ended with a deadly coward punch. Now they're fighting for justice. Also coming up, the high flyer jailed for ripping off Guy Sebastian. See the very public, awkward encounter between 2 world leaders. And the new online sales with deals that are good for your wallet and the planet. Australia's unemployment rate has fallen back to 3.4%. The low figure means there are near record numbers of Australians in full-time work, 47,000 more for last month. The federal government is still trying to get wages moving.
Real wages today are lower than what they were a decade ago.
The number of vacancies now almost matches the number of people looking for a job. A grieving family has told how 14 seconds of violence has left their lives shattered forever. They're still fighting for justice after a young tradie was killed in an unprovoked one-punch attack inside Crown Casino.
Luke Francis went to Crown to enjoy a night out with friends. The 29-year-old never came home.
14 seconds, my son's life's gone. And we miss him terribly.
The concreter was set upon by a stranger in the casino food court, attacking Mr Francis so viciously he'd later die in hospital. Today, the victim's friends and family wept in court as Tyson Armstrong pleaded guilty to killing him.
Even if he does plead guilty, it doesn't bring my brother back.
We just want justice for Luke. That's all we want, you know, a nice night out and randomly attacked from behind. And, you know, it's not right. It shouldn't be happening.
7 News understands the sickening attack was captured on casino cameras. By pleading guilty, Tyson Armstrong spares the Francis family the pain of a trial. But they say nothing can take away the heartache of knowing the confessed killer is still free on bail.
Should have been remanded today as far as we're concerned, so, yeah. It's very hard situation, and it's killing us all.
Armstrong's bail was tightened today. He's now banned from visiting Crown Casino or drinking alcohol in public venues.
So you shouldn't be in a licensed venue.
It shouldn't be.
No other family should ever go through this. I don't care. He should not be in a licensed venue.
He'll be back in court next month. Jodie Lee, 7 News.
Guy Sebastian's former manager has been sentenced to 4 years jail after embezzling more than $600,000 of the pop star's earnings. Titus Day won't be eligible for parole until November 2026. He'll also be forced to pay restitution. Day's lawyers are already planning an appeal. There has been an awkward exchange between the leaders of China and Canada at the G20 in Bali. Xi Jinping appeared to be annoyed after details from the closed-door meeting were leaked. China's leader telling Justin Trudeau it was not appropriate.
If there is sincerity on your part, free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have. We will continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things we will disagree on.
It's a rare moment for President Xi, whose appearances are often carefully crafted by Chinese state media. And it was far from the predicted red wave, but Republicans have now claimed a narrow mid-term election victory in the House of Representatives. The result leaves Congress split after the Democrats took Senate control. There's a new warning for parents offering alcohol to their underage teenagers at home. It's often well-intentioned, but it's doing more harm than good.
Josh's dad might be giving him some drinks for Friday. But what do you reckon?
According to the latest Drinkwise campaign, there's only one way to answer that question.
The answer is no.
This is a decision which will be in the best interests of your son and daughter's psychological and physical well-being.
Research shows teenagers are drinking less. Most 14 to 17-year-olds abstain from alcohol.
Parents need to capitalise on this trend.
Yet the number of drinking teens whose parents supply the booze is rising, almost doubling in the last decade. It can be a tough conversation to have, so what can parents do?
Have the conversation early and set those boundaries early. Have the conversation often, and also make sure that family and friends know your position around alcohol and the fact that your teenager is abstaining.
Parents can help by setting boundaries, being role models as well as influencers in their children's lives, and encourage responsible decision making. Most parents don't supply alcohol to their children, but even small sips can be problematic. Experts agree every underage drink increases the risk of harm.
What we want to see now is that parents are making those strong decisions to say no, you can't have any alcohol under the age of 18.
Drinks for Ethan, yay or nay? Nay.
Sonia Marinelli, 7 News.
We're facing new supply problems as we get closer to Christmas. Next on 7 News, the new hard-to-get groceries. Also Judgment Day for the truck driver responsible for the deaths of 2 women. And what devotees of Scrabble need to know. A truck driver has been jailed for nearly 4 years for killing 2 women in a crash on the Western Highway. Jason Anthony Hansen was putting a coffee back in its holder when his B-double struck the back of a car, causing it to be pushed head-on into another vehicle. He will spend at least 2 years and 4 months behind bars. The judge says Hansen's inattention was unthinkable negligence. The major supermarkets gave the share market a much-needed boost today. Here's Network Finance Editor Gemma Acton.
Thanks, Peter. The ASX 200 bobbed along close to flat for most of the day, finally ending up 14 points at 7,136. Consumer stocks, including the big 2 supermarkets, did well, while energy companies weighed. The Aussie dollar is backtracking towards 67 US cents, while oil prices slipped. That's as geopolitical tensions centred on Ukraine eased ever so slightly from a day earlier. And underutilised workers are those who are either unemployed or working but want to work more. Today, the underutilisation rate is under 10%. That is sharply lower than around 14% where it was in the decade leading up to the pandemic. Peter.
Thanks, Gemma. Spring's wild weather will send the price of many Christmas staples like cherries and seafood skyrocketing. Producers are pleading with Victorian families to be patient.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, but it may not taste as sweet.
The cherries aren't doing the best. We've had too much rain and too many grey days and really not enough sunshine to help them to grow and to colour.
After months of extreme rain and cooler temperatures, growers are struggling to produce the season's favourites.
So if the demand's there and the supply's not, then the prices could go up.
Possibly by double.
All of the fruit is starting to be affected in some way.
Floods are also being blamed for a shortage of stone fruit, and once again, consumers will pay.
The rolling flooding and saturation is taking its toll on the landscape and obviously affecting the health of plants and animals.
Including oysters and salmon.
They're going to have to expect to pay a little bit more than what they've been accustomed to over the past years.
But smart seafood swaps could ease the pain.
If you love lobster but your bank account doesn't, there is a way to get around it. The eastern red scorpion fish has a similar taste and is half the price.
The flesh texture, the flavours are quite similar.
Producers asking consumers to be patient with prices.
Really think about what does make Christmas special, and a bowl of cherries on the table certainly does.
Natasha Squarey, 7 News.
For those interested in board games, 500 new words have been added to the official list for playing Scrabble. And here's the sitch. If you're looking for inspo, you can now try adorbs, vibing, thingy, Zoomer, Baby Moon and Vax. BAY is an acronym for Before Anyone Else. This is Scrabble's first word update in 4 years. Tim, I'm not really vibing on some of those new additions. How about you?
Oxyphenbutazone is my favourite word on the Scrabble board. You'll get your 1,458 points, Mitch.
Just
use it sparingly.
I just stick with quiz. You've got sport next. There's already injury concerns for the Australians.
There is, Mitch. One of their stars copped a brutal blow in the first one-dayer, but there was no stopping Ashton Agar, who starred in the field against England, which set a big target for the Aussies. A war of words erupts as the Hawks unveil their flashy new digs. Superstar golfer Cam Smith returns home with some extra baggage for summer, and the Aussie who's heaped more pain on the NBA champions. Welcome back. Aussie all-rounder Marcus Stoinis will need to push through the pain barrier if he's to bat tonight against England in the first one-dayer. Adam Zampa and new skipper Pat Cummins took 3 wickets each, but a century to Dawood Malan lifted the visitors to 9 for 287.
New ODI captain Pat Cummins bowled first, leading from the front.
Edge and taken.
Jason Roy undone by Mitch Stark.
Bowled. A ripper from Stark. Back into the right hand.
James Vince, another Cummins victim. England's 3 for 31. Marcus Stoinis also in on the act.
Got him! Straight through.
Any hint of hangover from England's T20 World Cup triumph blown away by Jos Buttler. Stoinis needing treatment on his left index finger. Adam Zampa too tempting for Buttler. Caught for 29 by a boundary riding Ashton Agar. Even more dangerous in close.
Taiwan, and gone! It's Ashton Agar with the throw, and he does not miss.
Playing a lone hand, Dawood Malan, his second ODI century, reaching triple figures, not enough.
The biggest of the day for him. Gets it over the fence, it's taken in the crowd.
Agar's brilliant day in the field, crowned by a save beyond the boundary.
Oh, that's crazy. That is crazy.
Facing 128 balls, Malan finally fell for 134. The Kings of white ball cricket coming back to make a match of it. Australia's target, 288. Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
Hawthorn hopes its new multi-million-dollar facility in Dingley will rocket the club back into premiership contention. It comes on the eve of a bitter presidential showdown.
Marking the goal square at their new home in Dingley, they're the plans to future-proof Hawthorn.
This is a game changer for us from a football perspective, and for people who come to our club will look at this and go, wow.
With the construction deal locked in, the Kennedy Community Centre is due for completion in 2024, boasting 2 ovals, one with MCG dimensions, and equal men's and women's facilities.
To have an actual home is really important to us, and it makes us feel really valued.
It's very exciting and sort of what dreams are made of, so to have probably the most elite facility in 18 months' time, it's going to be a great place to be.
Budgeted for $100 million, the Hawks still short on crucial state funding.
To deliver the 100% of the community facilities, we need that money. To deliver the 100% of the Hawthorn facilities, we don't need that money.
Something board candidate James Molino is pledging to secure. The former Deputy Premier this week attacked by Jeff Kennett, described as unemployed and attempting to infect the Hawks. Molino supporting Andy Gower's bid as president, Kennett backing Peter Nankervis in what's been a heated personal campaign.
To quote Michelle Obama, and when they go low, we stay high.
It was a pretty strange comment because the late night tweeting, the personal attacks haven't been coming from us. It's been coming from the Kennett-Nankervis camp.
Voting for members opens tomorrow. Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
Aaron Mooy is hoping to be the saviour Australia needs at the World Cup. Injuries are mounting for the Socceroos, but after he was dumped from his Chinese club, Mooy has relished life under Ange Postecoglou at Celtic.
Worked as hard as I could, got into the best shape as possible, and I always believed that we could do it, and yeah, now we're sitting here and we're chasing other beliefs and dreams.
World champions France touched down overnight ahead of Wednesday's clash with the Aussies. After a year of global success and a decision he called scary, Cameron Smith is home with simple cravings. All the world number 3 wants is a pie, a beer and to play golf in front of Aussie fans for the first time in 3 years.
Yes, he did fly up front. Still, even with the famous mullet, Cam Smith became a face in the crowd. The flight crew wanted photos. Not a problem.
It's just awesome to be back. Everyone's just happy to have me home. There'll be plenty of hugs and kisses, that's for sure.
The low-key welcome quickly escalated when he flipped open the black box. The claret jug. Priceless. It's his for the year.
You dream of winning Opens, but for it to be at St Andrews and for it to be the 150th was just kind of, everything matched up as a dream come true.
In the days after that momentous victory came the agonising call to join controversial breakaway Live Golf. Was it the toughest decision you've made?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was quite scary at the start.
Greg Norman reportedly came waving a life-changing $140 million cheque.
They're decisions you want to have to make, so yeah, it's good.
No regrets?
No regrets, mate. No, I love it.
That demeanour, helped by winning quickly on the Live Tour and a pleasant realisation that fears he'd become a pariah to his PGA Tour mates were completely unfounded.
They just wanted what was best for me, and you know, we still have a laugh, still have a beer. There's no hard feelings there.
Chasing a third Australian PGA title and a maiden Australian Open are his goals this trip, but they'll wait.
So we'll go have a meat pie and probably a flat white and probably a couple of beers after that.
Why not? It's been 3 long years. Pat Welch, 7 News.
To the NBA now, and Steph Curry was cooking up a storm with 50 points for the Golden State Warriors in the clash with the Suns. But it was Aussie Jock Landale who starred with a massive block, followed up with a runaway dunk.
And then Booker finds him beautifully in transition for the stop.
Phoenix handing the Warriors their 8th loss on the road this season, their worst start in more than 30 years. We saw the best and worst of Nick Kyrgios at the ATP Tour Finals in Turin, teaming up with good mate Thanasi Kokkinakis. Kyrgios went from smashing his racket to pure elation in just minutes.
Oh, here we go. I think they won this.
The Australian Open doubles champions came from 5-1 down to win the match and keep their semi-final hopes alive. And Mitch, the front bar, is back tonight with all their Sports Year in Review show. It starts at 8:30 here on 7 with Ash Barty and Ned Brockman, the special guest. Always a lot of fun.
That will be a cracker. Thank you very much indeed, Tim. A new round of pre-Christmas sales starts tomorrow, allowing shoppers to grab a bargain and help the planet. The Green Friday sales are online and only companies with environmental credentials can take part.
These shoes come in all colours, but it's shades of green that may be the right fit for some.
And we want to support our customers to buy better.
Like most retailers, shoe store HyperDC is preparing for Black Friday next week. But first comes Green Friday, from the people behind Click Frenzy, an online sales event with an eco-edge. It all starts at 7 a.m. with discounts on sustainably sourced products from 150 of Australia's biggest brands, including Camilla, RM Williams and The Body Shop.
These younger, more progressive consumers are buying with the planet in mind.
Sustainable products, 100% recyclable, carbon offset. We're starting to see and hear these phrases a lot, but how do we know they're true? This afternoon, Sukin Skincare was dumped from Green Friday as it fights a court battle over carbon neutral claims.
These aren't legal terms, so you can make some pretty broad claims in Australia about being eco-friendly or sustainable.
Last month, ASIC issued its first ever fine for so-called greenwashing to energy company Tullow. Right now, there are active investigations into a series of super funds accused of the same. And there's a sweep of 200 websites to probe eco-friendly claims.
It's actually been suggested that close to 50% of these claims are misleading.
Amy Clements, 7 News.
Jane Bunn is next with the forecast. And Jane, finally, some better weather tomorrow.
Mitch, tomorrow looks absolutely lovely. We remain warm for much of Saturday too. Then it's downhill once again. And the full outlook is next.
Tomorrow, join us for Brekkie with the Stars, and it's supersized.
Just look who's dropping by exclusively on Sunrise tomorrow.
Hello again. We finally made it through our chilly stretch. Tomorrow is absolutely lovely. The city began just under 10 and had a fairly grey and cold morning. Sunshine slowly increased late this afternoon. That's a sign of what's on the way tomorrow. It reached 16. Now that's better than the 13 we had on Tuesday, but well short of the November average of 22. Tomorrow not only reaches that average, but it goes slightly above and the sunshine will feel delightful. There have been showers, areas of drizzle and a fair bit of cloud, but the cloud is on its way out and the wind is easing too. Cloud lingers over much of southern Victoria and extends up into parts of the north, just reaching Echuca. There's hardly any wet weather remaining, but temperatures only just started to thaw out. Cold fronts brought air up from Antarctica, but now it's all about high pressure. Today, the centre of that is back over to our west. Tomorrow, it's out to our east. but it's only a brief warm-up. The next weather system is not far away. This is the cool air we've felt out there this afternoon, and then this is what it should look like tomorrow. It's really quite a difference, jumping up by more than 5 degrees. The next rain system affects us on Saturday into Sunday. Another area of low pressure fed by tropical moisture, the potential for heavy rain. That heavy rain risk is in Melbourne on Saturday night into Sunday morning. All these catchments are back on flood watch, as minor to moderate flooding is likely with the new rain falling on already soaked ground. Then we're plunged back into wintry weather again to begin next week. So I'd make the most of tomorrow and Saturday. Around the nation tomorrow, mild to warm to our north, lots of sunshine. Hobart was 12 on Tuesday. Tomorrow, 18, a nice step up. Warm in Adelaide, a bit of patchy light rain in the afternoon. Cold in Perth, showers, the risk of storms. To Victoria, patchy morning fog, otherwise a lovely spring day. Bright sunshine, just a bit of wispy high cloud, thickening in the west late afternoon. Mild to warm as winds flick northerly. No more of this cool southerly. Closer in, if you're up early, it is pretty chilly. It'll quickly thaw out in bright sunshine. Nearly all spots rise above 20, near the mid-20s in the outer northeast. It is chilly as you catch the morning train, but should be up on 19 by lunchtime on our way to a top of 23. The sun is bright and the winds are light. It's lovely. To the 8-day outlook, Saturday is warm and dry for much of the time. However, there is a gusty northerly wind and thicker cloud. We do have the risk of a thunderstorm during the afternoon. If we see that, then temperatures will plummet. But they'll rise again late afternoon before that higher risk of thunderstorms with heavy rain. That is later on Saturday night into the early hours of Sunday. Generally up to 30 or 40 millimetres is possible if you are under one of these thunderstorms. It's a fairly dry day during the day on Sunday, but then showers really return. We'll have another 14 next Monday. Tomorrow, lovely. Sunny and 23. I'd say the peak of the outlook, Mitch.
What a ride we're having. Thank you, Jane. And that's the way it is this Thursday, the 17th of November. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.